Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we are plunging headfirst into a topic that might seem, well, a little daunting at first glance. Learning the Urdu language.
Yeah, Urdu. For many people, just hearing that word might bring up images of, really complex scripts, maybe long, difficult classes.
Or just years and years of really intense study. You might think, wow, that sounds hard. Or maybe that's just going to take forever.
Right. But what if I told you that, according to the source material we've been digging into for this deep dive, the journey doesn't actually have to be that way at all?
Oh, go on.
What if there are actually 5 easy and, importantly, interesting ways to approach learning Urdu?
Easy and interesting. I like the sound of that.
Exactly. Ways that the source suggests you can genuinely fit into a busy schedule. We're talking maybe just 10 minutes a day, even.
Okay, you've got my attention. 10 minutes a day sounds manageable. So that's our mission in this deep dive then.
Precisely. We're going to thoroughly explore these specific methods laid out in the source material.
We'll pull out the practical steps, the key insights, the actionable advice.
And really try to understand what makes these suggestions not just, theoretically possible, but actually achievable for someone starting out or maybe someone looking to improve their Urdu.
Think of this as a shortcut, maybe, to being well-informed on a fresh, engaging approach to tackling Urdu learning without feeling totally overwhelmed by just information overload.
Yeah, we're extracting the most important nuggets of knowledge so you can understand the core philosophy behind these suggestions and, crucially, how to put them into practice.
Correct. Forget the idea that language learning has to be confined to, like, dry textbooks, endless grammar drill.
For those grueling hours in a classroom, our source paints a much more accessible picture, doesn't it? More engaging.
It really does. It frames learning Urdu as something that can be integrated into your life almost joyfully, finding enjoyable pathways to progress.
So yeah, get ready for, hopefully, a fascinating and entertaining conversation. We want to help you see learning Urdu in a whole new light.
Turning that perceived mountain into maybe a series of manageable, interesting steps.
Let's jump right in. What's the first method the source presents?
Okay, method 1. The source presents this as learning from everyday conversation.
Ah, the practical approach.
Exactly. This isn't about formal lessons or structured study, not really. It's framed as maybe the easiest starting point.
Kind of the most natural, low-pressure way to begin making Urdu a part of your actual daily life, leveraging the interactions you already have.
And that's such a smart approach, isn't it?
Yeah.
It immediately takes language learning out of that purely academic box and puts it squarely into real-world context.
So the core action suggested here is, well, pretty simple on the surface, using simple Urdu sentences when you're talking to friends, family, maybe others you interact with regularly.
Yeah, it's not about aiming for fluency right off the bat. It's more about dipping your toes in the water, so to speak.
And the source gives some really practical examples to get started. Basic greetings, simple responses, things that are common and relatively easy to remember.
Absolutely. They suggest beginning with staples you might have already heard or things you can pick up quickly, like Kya hal hai.
The classic, how are you? Very common.
Exactly. Or responding to that with something straightforward like Shukran main thikun.
Which means, thank you, I am fine. Simple conversational building blocks you can use immediately.
But hang on, for someone who knows absolutely no Urdu, how do you even get started using simple sentences? Doesn't that feel, I don't know, intimidating?
That's a really fair point.
The source says it's easy, but isn't that first step of actually speaking aloud maybe the hardest part?
It often is, yeah. And the source is actually quite honest about that potential initial awkwardness.
Okay.
You might feel a bit silly, maybe self-conscious or nervous trying out new words, especially if you're unsure about your pronunciation. They acknowledge that barrier exists,
Right.
but the material immediately reinforces the idea that the more you push past that hesitation and actually speak, the easier it becomes. It gets more natural over time.
It's like a muscle you need to exercise, I suppose. The key isn't perfection right away.
No, definitely not. It's participation, just trying.
Okay. And they offer a really specific, actionable tip here, right? It goes beyond just using greetings. This is where the method gets a bit more structured, but still fits into daily life.
Yes, this is the core practice bit. The suggestion is to note down 5 new Urdu words daily.
Just 5.
Just 5, not 50, not 20, 5, which keeps it incredibly manageable, doesn't it?
5 words a day. Yeah, that sounds totally doable, even for someone with a packed schedule.
But what's the crucial next step after noting them down? just writing them isn't enough, surely.
No, you're right. Just writing them down is pretty passive. The crucial next step, and this is where the active learning really kicks in, is trying to use those 5 new words at least once during the day.
Ah, using them.
That's the key. It moves the words from just passive knowledge in your notebook to active, usable vocabulary that hopefully comes to mind when you're speaking.
It forces your brain to retrieve and apply the new word in context. Makes sense. And they give such a clear example of how to do this, which I thought was great. If you learn the word kushi, which means happiness.
Okay, kushi, got it.
The tip isn't just to know the definition, it's to actually try and use it in a sentence when talking to someone. Maybe a friend, like saying something specific, Aaj main bahut kushi mehsus kar raha hoon.
Which translates to?
Today, I am feeling a lot of happiness. So it's not some random example sentence. It's a sentence about your own feelings using that new word.
Ah, I see. That connection between learning the word and immediately applying it in a personal context.
Yeah.
That seems incredibly powerful for actually remembering it.
It really is. The source emphasizes that these small, consistent steps, noting 5 words, using them once, they significantly improve your Urdu over time.
So it's not about huge leaps of memorization or drilling grammar rules constantly.
Not with this method, no. It's about steady, daily integration and application, building a habit.
And the big plus they highlight for this method, doing all this without feeling like you need to sign up for a, quote, boring formal class.
Exactly. It leverages your existing social interactions, your daily routine, turning those casual moments into learning opportunities.
So let's dig a bit deeper into why this method works, based on the source's philosophy. Why is integrating into daily conversation so effective?
Well, it provides immediate, low-stakes application, doesn't it? You're not just memorizing words off a list for a test.
Right, you're making them functional tools for actual communication, however basic.
And that process builds confidence pretty quickly because you get immediate feedback. Did the person understand you? Even a simple nod or a smile is positive reinforcement.
It fundamentally shifts language from being this abstract academic subject
To a practical tool for connecting with other people, which is what language is really for, isn't it?
Absolutely. And thinking about it from maybe a cognitive perspective. When you learn a word and then immediately use it in a sentence about your own experience.
You're creating multiple pathways in your brain, right? You got the sound, the meaning, the context of the sentence, maybe the feeling or situation you're describing.
It's much richer, much more memorable than just seeing a word on a flashcard.
Definitely. And limiting it to just 5 words a day prevents that feeling of being overwhelmed, that cognitive overload. It's a manageable chunk you can actually focus on mastering each day.
Making it live, making it personal. So, for you listening right now, how could you find opportunities to implement this first method in your day?
Do you have friends or family who speak Urdu? Even just a little bit. Could you commit to using a simple greeting like Assalamu alaikum and the response Walaikum assalam when you see them?
Or could you set a reminder on your phone maybe? Pick out 5 words related to your morning routine, like the Urdu word for coffee or morning or ready.
And then find a way, anyway, to actually use them. Say them out loud.
Even if you don't have Urdu speakers immediately around you, you could practice those 5 words by saying sentences aloud to yourself, right?
Absolutely. Or writing them out in sentences in your notes. The core idea is taking that small input and making it active output daily.
Start small, stay consistent, use your existing environment. That's the essence of method 1.
Nicely put. Okay, shall we move on to method number 2?
Let's do it. Method 2 is framed by the source as learning while having fun, which sounds pretty appealing.
Doesn't it just? This one involves immersing yourself in Urdu media.
Tapping into something many of us do for entertainment anyway, watching movies, listening to music, turning leisure time into learning time.
Yeah, it poses this really intriguing idea that you can significantly boost your Urdu, your vocabulary, your comprehension, even your pronunciation, just by engaging with media.
It's learning through, I guess, passive exposure, but with active moments mixed in.
Exactly. Passive listening combined with active engagement.
Which is fantastic news for anyone who loves culture and entertainment. And the source gives specific, accessible examples of media to start with.
They do. They mention classic Bollywood films, which are famous worldwide and often heavily influenced by Urdu language and poetry.
And they also suggest listening to songs by popular, acclaimed singers. They mention Rahat Fateh Ali Khan or Atif Aslam specifically.
Right. Artists whose music often features beautiful and often quite accessible Urdu lyrics.
These are widely available examples, too. They're a cultural gateway as well as a linguistic one.
So, for movies, the process they suggest is pretty straightforward. Pick a classic Bollywood film, they even name-check Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge, or DDLJ as it's known.
Ah, huge one. Great entry point.
Definitely. And the crucial step is turn on the subtitles.
Subtitles, absolutely key, I'd imagine, especially when you're starting out.
Oh, completely. They provide that essential bridge between the spoken words you're hearing and the written form, the meaning on the screen.
And when you're watching, the source advises focusing not just on the plot, though, that helps keep you engaged, obviously.
But specifically paying attention to the sentences being used, how are the characters phrasing things, what words keep popping up, what are the common sentence structures.
Okay, so actively listening for the language, not just passively watching.
Exactly. And for music lovers, the process is similar and just as practical. Choose a song by artists like Rahat Fateh Ali Khan or Atif Aslam, maybe one you already like the tune of.
Makes sense. Start with something you enjoy.
Then Google the lyrics. Most popular songs, you can find the lyrics online easily, often with translations available too.
And many Urdu songs, especially from artists like Rahat Fateh Ali Khan, have really beautiful, sometimes quite poetic language that exposes you to a richer vocabulary.
It really does. Then the way to learn while listening is to engage actively again. The source suggests singing along with the lyrics.
Singing along?
Yeah, it helps massively with pronunciation, getting the rhythm, the flow of the language. You start to feel how the words sound together naturally.
I can see that. And while you're singing, or just listening with the lyrics in front of you.
Actively note down any new words or phrases you come across, so it's combining that passive enjoyment of listening with active vocabulary building.
The source uses a wonderful description for this method. They say it's so delicious, that's their exact word,
Delicious, I love that.
that you won't even realize you are learning. And that's the real power of integrating learning with enjoyment, isn't it?
It really is. When something is genuinely fun, you're much more likely to do it consistently. And your brain is often more receptive to actually absorbing the information when you're relaxed and enjoying yourself.
It's the ultimate form of stealth learning. And, for those of us who listen to things, maybe a deep dive like this one.
Possibly.
Our source even gives a little nod to other forms of media, like podcasts. They mention Urdu with Asghar as another example.
Which highlights the broader point, really. Find any Urdu media that you genuinely enjoy, movies, music, podcasts, maybe even audiobooks later on, and use it consciously as a learning tool.
Okay, so let's analyze how this media immersion helps based on the principles in the source.
Well, the big one is massive exposure to natural speech patterns. You hear how native or near-native speakers actually talk, their speed, their intonation, rhythm, pauses.
You encounter vocabulary and idioms in context, which is so much more effective for understanding nuance and remembering words than just seeing them on a list.
Definitely. Like you might hear a word used sarcastically in a movie scene. That emotional tag, that context helps cement the meaning and usage in your mind.
And it also exposes you to cultural nuances embedded within the language. You can't really separate language from culture, can you? True understanding needs both.
Not at all. And what's also interesting here, thinking about the examples they gave, classic Bollywood poetic songs, is the type of Urdu you might encounter.
How so?
It might lean towards a slightly more formal, perhaps more Persianized vocabulary compared to very casual, everyday street Urdu.
Okay, so it exposes you to different registers of the language.
Exactly. While method one gets you comfortable with everyday chat, media like this can broaden your exposure to richer or more formal language. That's valuable for understanding a wider range of contexts.
The source doesn't explicitly talk about linguistic registers, but by recommending these kinds of media, that exposure is sort of an implicit benefit of this method.
Precisely. And then there's that powerful emotional connection we touched on. Music and film evoke feelings.
And that makes the language stick.
It really can. If a word or phrase is tied to a dramatic scene you remember, or a funny moment, or a melody you can't get out of your head, it creates a stronger, more durable memory trace.
You're not just learning a word, you're learning the feeling it conveyed in that specific situation.
Exactly. So for you, listening right now, what kind of media might appeal most to you? Are you already a film buff?
Or a music enthusiast. Maybe you prefer diving into podcasts. Or perhaps even looking at Urdu poetry online, maybe with translations to start.
There's almost certainly an entry point here that aligns with your existing interests, that makes this method feel less like studying and more like, well, exploring something you already enjoy.
Find your jam, as they say, and consciously turn some of that leisure time into a language lesson. Great advice.
Right. Leverage what you already love doing.
Okay, moving on. Method number 3. The source frames this one as crucial for becoming, quote, expert or truly proficient in Urdu.
Ah, this is about interaction then.
Exactly, finding a language partner.
This method shifts the focus significantly, doesn't it? From mostly passive input like media or limited solo practice.
The active, interactive communication. And the source is really clear why a partner is needed if your goal is genuine mastery.
You need someone to practice speaking with in real time, to listen to natural conversation flow, to ask questions when you're stuck, and importantly, to get feedback.
Feedback on your pronunciation, your grammar, how you're putting sentences together.
Language is inherently social, isn't it? This method really embraces that.
It makes complete sense. Language is fundamentally about connecting and communicating with others. So where do you find these partners?
Well, the source suggests potential partners, starting with the ideal scenario. Maybe a friend, a colleague, or a family member who already speaks Urdu fluently.
If you have access to someone like that in your life, that's a fantastic resource. But what if you don't?
Then they point towards the incredibly accessible option these days, joining online language learning groups or using dedicated language exchange platforms.
Right. The digital age has made this so much easier. They give specific examples of online tools too, don't they?
They do. They mention well-known apps like Tandem or HelloTalk.
Ah, yes, I've heard of those.
These platforms are basically built around connecting language learners across the globe. You find someone whose native language is Urdu and who's learning your language.
And you arrange to chat, maybe splitting the time so you both get practice.
Exactly. It's a mutual exchange.
And the time commitment suggested by the source for this method, is it huge?
Surprisingly manageable, actually. They suggest that just 10 minutes of chatting per week with a language partner can dramatically improve your Urdu.
10 minutes a week. Seriously.
10 minutes a week, that's what they say. It's less time than many people spend scrolling social media in one go, right?
Or waiting in line for coffee. Wow. That feels incredibly doable. Almost too good to be true.
Well, it relies on consistency, obviously. But yeah, the barrier to entry time-wise is very low.
But the source also addresses a very real barrier here, doesn't it? Shyness. Nerves.
Oh, yeah. Talking to a stranger, especially in a language you're not yet confident in, that can be incredibly intimidating.
What if I make loads of mistakes?
Yeah.
What if I just freeze up and don't understand anything?
Totally valid fears. And they tackle this head on by providing a specific, simple, polite opening message, something suggested specifically for shy learners to just break the ice on these platforms.
Okay, what is it?
It's a clear and respectful request for help. Salam kap meri Urdu behtar karne mein madad kar sakte hain.
Which translates directly to,
Hello, can you help me improve my Urdu?
that's a perfect icebreaker. It manages expectations right away. You're upfront about being a learner, asking for help.
Exactly. And they add a really reassuring point about the community on these platforms. People using apps like Tandem or HelloTalk are generally ready and willing to help you learn their language.
Because they're looking for help with your language too, usually. There's that built-in understanding, that mutual goal.
Right. So let's think about the unique benefit of this method. What does interaction give you that the others don't?
It's that real-time practice, isn't it? Speaking and listening live.
Yes. Unlike practicing alone or just listening passively to media, interaction forces you to think on your feet. You have to understand spoken language at a natural pace or maybe slightly slowed down. Partners are usually happy to do that.
And you have to formulate your own responses spontaneously. You can't just pause a conversation like you pause a movie.
Exactly. You get immediate, authentic feedback, even if it's just the other person understanding you or maybe needing you to rephrase something.
It forces you to confront the gaps in your knowledge. Right. And it builds confidence specifically in those live, unpredictable communication situations.
It contrasts so sharply with just reading or listening passively. This is where you actually produce the language under a little bit of, healthy pressure, essential for getting fluent.
So for you listening, how can you overcome that potential shyness to connect with a partner?
Maybe start with text-based chat first. That can feel less pressured than jumping straight into voice or video calls.
Good idea. Or maybe specifically look for partners who describe themselves as beginners or also learning, so you can kind of learn and make mistakes together without feeling judged.
Finding someone at a similar level can definitely ease the pressure, create that shared sense of vulnerability and progress. The key, again, is just starting somewhere.
Even if it's just sending that one opening message, Salam कि आप मेरी उर्दू बेहतर करने में मदद कर सकते हैं to one potential partner.
10 minutes a week. That's the achievable goal the source lays out.
Action over anxiety in small, consistent doses. Love it. Okay, method number 4.
This one leans right into how modern technology has just completely transformed language learning, often making it much simpler.
We're talking apps and tools.
Exactly. We live in an age of incredible digital resources right on our phones or computers. Language learning has benefited hugely.
And the source lists several specific apps mentioned as helpful tools covering different aspects of learning.
They point to some familiar names like Duolingo and Memrise.
Ah, yes, the gamified apps.
Right, which are fantastic for building vocabulary, practicing basic sentence structures, and reinforcing learning through things like spaced repetition and making it feel like a game.
Yeah, then also include Google Translate, which, people might think of as just a quick lookup tool or maybe even a crutch that stops you from learning properly.
But the source suggests a way to use it actively for learning, not just passively.
Oh, interesting. How?
They present this as a great tip. Use Google Translate to translate 5 sentences daily.
Okay, translate 5 sentences. But not just any random sentences, I assume.
No, the most effective approach is translating sentences that are actually relevant to your life, things you genuinely want to be able to say in Urdu.
Or maybe sentences you encountered elsewhere in a movie from your language partner that you want to understand better or learn to use yourself.
Exactly. Make it personal. And the next step for those translated sentences is crucial. It's not just about seeing the text on the screen.
You need to.
Read them aloud. Speak them out. Don't just look at the translation.
Okay, read them aloud. Why is that step so important?
The source explains the dual benefit here. Firstly, reading aloud significantly improves your pronunciation and intonation. It helps you refine your accent by hearing your own voice producing the Urdu sounds and sentences.
You're practicing the mechanics of speaking.
Right. And secondly, it helps you internalize the sentence structures and vocabulary in a way that passive reading just doesn't. It helps you learn new sentences actively.
So you're practicing the sound and feel of the language in your mouth, not just processing the meaning visually.
Precisely. And for those who like to reinforce learning through writing or reviewing, the source adds a complimentary tip. Use simple note-taking apps.
Like Google Notes or Easy Notes, things most people already have on their phone or computer.
Yeah, exactly. The purpose is simple but really effective for organization and review. The suggestion is to keep a central place to jot down all your new words and sentences as you encounter them.
So, words from your daily conversation practice. Method 1.
Phrases you picked up from movies or songs. Method 2.
Vocabulary you learned from your language partner. Method 3.
Or those sentences you translated and practiced with Google Translate. Method 4. It's about building your own personal dictionary and phrasebook.
Curated from your actual learning experiences. Makes sense.
And the source uses a great metaphor for all these digital tools. They say that if you use them correctly, actively, consistently, they are like a magic wand.
A magic wand. I like that. But the key is if you use them correctly.
Exactly. It's a reminder that the power isn't just in having the app installed, it's in how you actively wield it as part of your learning process.
So, digging into the analysis here, these different tools support different facets of learning, don't they?
They really do. Duolingo and Memrise use scientifically proven methods like spaced repetition scheduling reviews, just as you might be about to forget something. Plus, the gamification keeps motivation up for many people.
While Google Translate, used actively like they suggest translating your sentences and speaking them, becomes a powerful tool for personalized sentence building and pronunciation practice.
And those note apps provide that essential organizational layer. They let you easily review and consolidate everything you're learning across all these different methods.
So they offer diverse kinds of support: vocabulary, structure, pronunciation, organization, catering to different needs and styles.
Yeah. So for you listening, which of these tools might be most useful for your learning style right now? Are you someone who thrives on gamification like Duolingo offers?
Or do you prefer the flexibility of translating your own relevant sentences with Google Translate and practicing speaking them?
Or maybe you're a meticulous note-taker who'd really benefit from organizing everything you learn in a dedicated app.
Worth considering your preferences and, realistically, your constraints. The best tool isn't the one with the most features.
It's the one you'll actually use consistently as part of your routine. And remember that magic wand idea, the tool is only as effective as your active engagement with it.
Consistency. That brings us perfectly and perhaps most importantly to the fifth and final method, discussed in the source.
Yes. They emphasize this is the last method they present, but it is absolutely the most important one.
Why that?
Because without this, the other 4 methods, no matter how engaging or fun they seem, might not actually lead to lasting progress.
Okay, so what is this crucial final method?
It's a fundamental truth about learning anything complex and valuable: consistency and patience.
Ah, the long game.
Exactly. The source states the core truth right up front, managing expectations very realistically. No language can be learned overnight, period.
There's no magic shortcut that completely eliminates the need for dedicated time and sustained effort. It just takes commitment.
But, and this is crucial, they immediately make this feel manageable. They provide a specific, small, highly achievable time commitment that embodies this principle of consistency.
Which is
Taking out just 10 minutes daily for Urdu practice.
just 10 minutes, like the language partner's suggestion, but daily for general practice.
Exactly. Not an hour of intense cramming, not 2 hours, not even 30 minutes. Just 10 minutes. This seems to be the cornerstone of their approach to consistency. Make the daily target small enough that it's really hard to justify skipping a day.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, and they pair this small, consistent commitment with a promised result, right, to keep you motivated.
They do. They say that in just a few months of consistently practicing for only 10 minutes a day, you will be genuinely surprised by how much progress you've actually made.
It's that powerful cumulative effect, isn't it?
Yeah.
Small, regular efforts adding up over time.
Like saving a tiny amount of money every single day. It doesn't feel like much day to day, but after a few months or a year, it becomes significant.
And to really hammer this point home, the source shares a brief personal anecdote, doesn't it?
Yes, which is quite powerful. The speaker mentions that when they themselves started learning Urdu, they began with a similarly small, manageable goal: learning just one new word daily and actively finding a way to use it. Very much like the suggestion back in Method 1.
Starting really small.
Really small. And they recount that eventually, that tiny, consistent daily effort, starting with just one word, led them organically to the point where they could do significant things with the language. Including being able to host a podcast, or in our case today, being the source material for this very deep dive outlining this approach.
Wow. That's a really compelling illustration of that compound effect of consistency. Start small, stick with it day after day, week after week, and see where that momentum takes you.
Absolutely. And alongside consistency, they mention its equally important partner principle: patience.
Patience.
Right.
Because it won't always be smooth sailing.
Definitely not. They offer encouragement. Don't lose hope. There will inevitably be days, maybe even weeks, when progress feels incredibly slow.
When you forget words you thought you knew, or you just feel stuck on a particular concept.
That's a completely normal part of the process for any complex learning. Persistence through those moments, that's what pays off in the long run.
And they end this section on consistency and patience with some simple but really quite profound advice, don't they?
They do. It's simply enjoy your journey.
Enjoy the journey, not just focus on the destination.
Exactly. Learning a language isn't just about reaching some endpoint of perfect fluency way off in the future. It's about appreciating the process itself, the small discoveries you make along the way, the moments of connection when you understand something new, that feeling of gradual progress.
So let's analyze this final piece.
Yeah.
Why is consistency, even in small amounts, so much more effective than, say, intense bursts of study?
Well, intense bursts cramming can give you rapid gains initially, perhaps, but they're often totally unsustainable. It's really easy to burn out and just give up altogether.
Whereas consistency builds habits.
Exactly. It integrates learning into your daily rhythm. It starts to feel less like this extra burden you have to shoulder and more like just a normal part of your day, like brushing your teeth.
And that regular spaced engagement gives your brain time, doesn't it? Time to actually process and consolidate new concepts, new vocabulary, new grammar structures into long-term memory.
Your brain needs that time to integrate new information properly. You can't just force it all in at once.
It's like building muscle, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Hitting the gym for 5 hours straight once a month probably won't build much lasting strength.
No way. But going for 10 or 15 minutes every single day, doing just a few focused exercises consistently, that will lead to significant lasting changes over time.
Consistency builds that linguistic muscle memory.
Perfectly put. And framing it as the journey versus just the destination encourages you to appreciate those small wins along the way.
Like finally understanding a line in a song without looking at the lyrics.
Or successfully using a new word in a conversation with your language partner.
Or even just recognizing a few characters in the script if you decide to tackle learning the script later on, which wasn't explicitly in these methods, but is part of the journey for many learners.
Right. Celebrate those small victories. They keep you motivated.
Absolutely. So for you listening, the really practical takeaway here is figuring out how you can realistically build those consistent 10 minutes into your daily routine.
When and where can you protect that small block of time? Is it first thing in the morning before the day gets crazy?
Maybe during your commute, if you're not driving,
Yeah.
or while you're waiting for the kettle to boil or dinner to cook.
Or maybe just before bed. Find a slot that works consistently for you and try to treat that 10 minutes as non-negotiable Urdu time.
That small commitment, honored daily, is really the engine that drives progress across all the other methods we've discussed.
It ties everything together.
So there you have it. We've taken a pretty deep dive into the source material on learning Urdu and extracted these 5 easy and interesting methods that really aim to make the process accessible and engaging, even if you have limited time.
We covered, let's see, learning from everyday conversation, using simple phrases, learning and using 5 new words daily, integrating Urdu into your social interactions.
Then we explored enjoying Urdu media, classic Bollywood movies, popular music using subtitles and lyrics as tools for fun immersion and vocabulary building.
We discussed the crucial step of finding language partners, maybe through friends or apps like Tandem and HelloTalk, leveraging just 10 minutes a week for that vital real-time communication practice.
Then we looked at using apps and tools, Duolingo, Memrise, using Google Translate actively, using note apps effectively for structure, pronunciation practice, and keeping everything organized.
And finally, the glue holding it all together, consistency and patience. Committing just that small, manageable 10 minutes a day, trusting the compound effect, being patient with yourself.
And enjoying the journey itself.
Exactly. The source material kind of ends with a direct call to action here, like passing the baton, and we should probably echo that directly to you, the listener.
Right. Having explored these 5 practical methods we've pulled from the source, really, it's your turn now.
And the key is not to feel overwhelmed, thinking you have to implement all 5 methods perfectly starting tomorrow.
No, definitely not. The most important step is simply to start. Encourage yourself to pick just one method, whichever one resonated most with you today.
Or maybe just the one that feels most accessible in your current life, your current schedule, and commit to trying that one method.
Will you try using a simple Urdu greeting next time you have the chance? Assalamu alaikum.
Will you maybe put on an Atif Aslam song later today and look up the lyrics while you listen?
Will you download Tandem or HelloTalk and just craft that simple opening message asking for help?
Or will you commit right now to translating and speaking aloud just 5 sentences relevant to your day using Google Translate?
As you consider which method you might try first, maybe even today, take a moment to think about this final provocative thought. Something to mull over, building on these themes of persistence, patience, the journey.
What unexpected doors might consistently dedicating even that small amount of time, just 10 minutes a day, to learning Urdu actually open for you in the future, beyond just the language skill itself?
Could it lead to entirely new friendships you wouldn't have otherwise made?
A deeper understanding of a rich culture, unforeseen travel opportunities.
Maybe even professional possibilities you haven't even considered yet.
Keep that potential, that sense of discovery in mind as you potentially begin, or maybe continue, your own Urdu learning journey.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into making learning Urdu feel more accessible and hopefully more enjoyable.
We really hope you found it valuable and maybe feel a bit more equipped to take that first small, consistent step.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning.
And enjoy the journey.